What was the first claim you made? Where the first one where people are like, "Oh shit, this guy's up to something." That was kind of weird. What's he talking about? What's the first thing you said that became a reality that at first everybody fought you on it? Because we have this one. If we can play this one here, this is July 25th of 2001. Okay.
Whose family builds all the
Go back.
military.
Go back. There you go.
Threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, running the Mujahideen war, and whose family builds all the military bases over in Saudi Arabia right now, and sits on the board of Iridium Satellite. He's the boogeyman they need in this Orwellian phony system. A big part of this solution, after you research all the government terrorism and check out what I'm saying is true, call the White House and tell them, we know the government's planning terrorism. We know Oklahoma City and World Trade Center was terrorism. We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners, Baltimore Sun. If you do it, we're going to blame you because we know who's up to it. Or if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s.
So you say this, pre it going national.
And by the way, I did a 2.5-hour show that people only have that clip. It's in one of my documentaries. I need to find it and re-upload it to the web because when they took me on my YouTube, it all got erased. That's a copy of a copy of a copy. I did 2.5 hours specifically saying they're going to blow up the World Trade Center. Call the White House, tell them don't blow up the World Trade Center. So I'll find that full clip this week because it needs to go up, and I'll put it back up.
Yeah, and by the way, we have your permission to use your clips.
Anything you want.
Yeah.
It's all free to air.
So when you did that, what is the reaction from that to 9/10? Like we're like, what are you talking about? That this is going to be happening? You must be losing your mind. Like, what was the reaction people gave when you first said that?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I already had a local radio show in 2001, and I'd been fired off local radio, so I was doing it out of my house, but it was actually on a satellite and on probably 100 stations by then. But this is pre-YouTube, so if I wanted to be on TV, I'd use the studio as a local access station. So that's a 2.5-hour live show I did one night, a few months before 9/11. And what was the question?
No, what I'm trying to say is between this, when you make that claim.
Oh, I remember the question. I remember.
Pre-9/11, during that 2-month period, what's the reaction from people to you? And then right after 9/11 happens, what do people say about you?
Sure, what happens is I was kind of going back in my memory and then trying to find exactly, and that's why I was just kind of tracing back to the point, because then once I remember one thing, I remember the rest. This is a crazy story. Okay, so I would do live shows once a week there, but we'd turn a tape in that they'd air like 10 more times on average. So I shot this live, turned the tape in at Access TV, and on the night of 9/11, the 2.5-hour show aired. Wow. And I got death threats and everything else because they thought I was saying that day that the government had done it when I was saying July 25th. But later, the date came out, people figured it out. So people were completely freaked out. They didn't know what was going on. A little bit after this happened, they sent some FBI agents, in like as plain clothes to the access station one night when I was there trying to talk to me and stuff and asking me questions. And, hey, what do you know about terrorists? Do you know anything about like, teams or teams of people? And I'm thinking, oh, you're an FBI agent. Well, I don't know what you mean teams. They were trying to imply like I had terror teams or something. I guess this struck a nerve. So they sent in a couple FBI agents. But I was on my radio show. We ought to find the archives of that, saying they're going to do it because I could see the pre-programming where they're saying terrorists are about to hit, and when the terrorists hit, you got to give up all your rights, and we're going to have troops in the streets and blah blah blah. And I saw a couple of globalists, Gary Hart and one other guy on CNN. And this is right before I went on air and did this, and they were basically saying life's about to change, the world's about to be completely different. We're going to have to take your rights away. Terrorists are about to hit. And I saw articles in the local paper saying that. I saw the pre-programming, like a rollout was happening, and I knew that Islamists had hit the towers in 1992. It was a real attack, but the FBI had cooked the bomb, allowed them to do it, protected them, blocked Ahmad Salam, the Egyptian.
Is this proven? It
all came out, yeah. And I've interviewed Ahmad Salam.
Can you pull that up? Go ahead, keep going.
Type in Ahmad Salam recordings, World Trade Center bombing. And so he gave a press conference where he recorded the FBI telling him, no, we're going to let the bombing go ahead, because he thought they were trying to set him up. And then it did go forward. So I already knew about this. I had a lot of data and a lot of information feeding into I thought they would go back and try to bring down the World Trade Center a second time, because in criminology, that's what happens. And they did have people on airplanes, and they were Islamicists, but it turns out they were CIA with double passports and were being protected. And they thought they were taking part in a hijacking drill that day. And then what really happened is they nerve gassed the people on the planes, from the best info we have, then remote controlled them into the towers. And then another one was supposed to hit the Pentagon, but people, despite the fact, and they have the stewardess recordings where they're saying, I can't breathe, there's gas. That's what's really happening again. But before they could do that, a F-16 put, and that's in the FAA recordings, put 2 AIM-9s into it and shot it down over Pennsylvania.
9/11 happens, and then we were warned. Rumsfeld went in front of the White House, and he was like, something's happening with terrorism. He kind of warned us. Condoleezza Rice warned the mayor of, was it Chicago? Don't fly to New York this day. And then you nailed it, Alex, when you were talking about Osama bin Laden. Every flight in the entire United States was grounded. There was a couple F-16s circling. The only commercial flights that were left from here flew to Ramstein, Germany, and it was Osama bin Laden's entire family.
They flew them all out. And that was on local Miami news. They flew them out of here.
Yeah, 100%.
Or just north of here. So, and there's video of it. But it gets worse. So I'm saying there's thousands of pieces of data. They didn't find one. They found 2 hijackers' passports unburned in that whole explosion. So you got 10 feet of dust everywhere, billions of papers, but those get found the next day. You believe that? So and it goes on for days. But I interviewed the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff right before he died about this, and a bunch of other people. And they told me before it came out a few years later that all the top generals were supposed to go to New York that day for a big meeting. They got told not to go. And remember, the Pentagon asked InfraGard leaders a month before, about 2 weeks before. You pull these up articles. That's all that corporate executives, get approached to be part of Homeland Security before they announce that name, and infrastructure protection and the whole shadow government program. They flew them to Offutt Air Force Base. Was that the one? It's just from memory. It's just ancient history. They flew them all to an Air Force base and had them in a hangar when the attack was happening, and closed the doors and gave them some secret briefing. Mm-hmm. Look up business leaders, billionaires flown to Air Force Base in 9/11. It's all up there. And this is such ancient history. I haven't gone over this in years. I should write a book on 9/11 and go back over it all. I mean, it is just insane.